Topic A is called automatic backups. Microsoft, as part of the Azure SQL Database platform and the platform as a service offering, provide automated backups for Azure SQL databases. Now, automatic backups in a Azure SQL database consist of full, differential, and log backups. The first automatic full backup is performed immediately after the database has been provision. Differentials are scheduled to occur every hour, and transaction log backups are scheduled for every 5 to 10 minutes. The full backup is then scheduled to run once a week. Now, automatic backups are not accessible. You can't download or do a manual restore from an automatic backup. However, you can use an automatic backup to restore the database using the Azure portal or the command line interface or PowerShell. Okay, and we will look at some of these in the next section. So we provision our Azure SQL database. The first full backup is taken, and then full backups are taken weekly after that. Differential backups occur every 1 hour, and transaction log backups happen every 5 to 10 minutes, allowing you to have a point-in-time recovery. Okay, now backup storage and the retention of our backups. In terms of backup storage, Microsoft give you free backup storage, which is double the size of your maximum provisioned database storage. So as an example, if you have a standard Azure SQL database that's 100 gig in size, you get 200 gig of free storage space or backup storage space. And you can control the free backup storage size by limiting the retention period of your backups. Now, backup retention period, the backup retention period varies as per the different service tiers of your Azure SQL database. So the retention period for basic service tier is 7 days, and for standard and premium it's 35 days. You can extend the retention period through the long-term retention feature, which stores the backup in your Azure Backup Service Vault for up to 10 years. A recovery service vault is a storage service which is used to store backups of various Azure services such as VMs, Azure SQL databases, and even on-premises database backups. And we'll cover these will be covered in a little bit more detail in lesson 4, where we look at restoring an Azure SQL database. In this demo, we will configure a long-term backup retention for Azure SQL database. So the scenario we've been tasked to secure and back up the data at Toy Store Limited. To do this, we will configure a long-term backup retention for our Azure SQL database. And to perform this, we will use the Recovery Service Vault in Azure. So the aim here is to configure the long-term backup retention for our database. So we will create a Recovery Service Vault, then configure the long-term retention for the Toy Store SQL database that we've created in earlier lessons. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to log into the Azure portal. So we log in with our credentials, and then once we're in the Azure portal, we're going to click on the All Services tab. At the top here, I'm going to type in, and I'm going to search for Recovery. See, we've got Recovery Service Vault. I will click on that. When we're in the Recovery Service Vault pane, I'm going to click on Add. You'll see the Add button just there, to create a new Recovery Service Vault. So under the name, I'm going to enter the name of our Recovery Service Vault. So I'm going to call this Toy Store Backup. Then I'm going to choose the subscription. I'm going to leave that to my MSDN platform. Then I get to choose the resource group. Now we're going to keep the resource group the same as that of the Azure SQL database. If I click on the drop-down list here, I'm going to choose my Toy Store resource group, and I'm going to leave the location to be Western Europe, which is the same as the other databases. And then I'm going to click on Create at the bottom, and the Recovery Service Vault will be provisioned. When the deployment has succeeded, I'm going to click on the All Resources menu option, and then I'm going to select Toy Factory SQL Server. Toy Store SQL. When we're in the Toy Store SQL Azure pane, I'm going to click on Manage Backups. That loads up my two databases. I'm going to select the checkbox near or next to the Toy Store database, and then I'm going to choose Configure Retention. And then we get to configure the policy, so we can keep the current settings, or we can choose long-term retention configuration. So I'm going to say keep this for 104 weeks give us a 2-year gap, and I'm going to keep that to be the same. And then I get to choose which weekly backup of the year would you like to retain. The last one, which is 52 in there. And we click on apply. And you want to save the policy, yes. And it updates the retention policy for